Okay, we're back and I filled up all the frequencies by using that countifs function. So I have all my values here. Again, a check that you want to do always is to make sure that they add up to the 20 that you have. So again, hopefully remember that in order to do that, I want to do a sum function. So I go up to fx and I do a sum and I go insert the function and then I make sure I'm highlighting the data that I want to add up and go done. And there are 20. Now, relative frequency and cumulative frequency, same as usual. So I'm going to do it a bit more quickly. Create my formula, equals. I'm going to take the frequency divided by the total. And I'm going to drag the formula all the way down here. But remember, in order to drag the formula, I have to make sure that I put my dollar signs to stick that in place so that that value doesn't change. Okay? So there's absolute cell referencing on the 20, the red. But the blue, I want this one to change along with it. So there's no dollar signs in front of the blue there. Okay, so I press enter. All right, and of course 1 divided by 20 is 0.05 or 5%. But if you drag it all the way down, boom, there you'll have it all. It keeps all the decimal places for you. But of course this is going to be non-repeating, non-terminating decimals because we're dividing by 20. But either way, we want the value, of course, to add up to 1. I can go ahead and use a sum function if I want to, but I don't want to do that. The reason why I don't want to do that is I've already got the sum function here, so I can drag it to the right. And there it is. It adds all up to 1, exactly as we would expect it to do. For the cumulative frequency, again, I go equals, okay? And then I take my starting frequency here, nothing really happening in that spot here. And then for this grouping of 149 to 159, okay, it's going to include the 2 and the 1. So what do I want to do? I want to go equals, and I want to do the 2, but rather than doing this 1, I want to use the cumulative frequency up to that point beforehand. So I want to use that, okay? But I have to add the two of them together. So I use my new values, 2 new for this group, plus everybody below it, which is the cumulative frequency for the previous one. Okay, press enter, and it's 3. And then I can use that formula all the way down, and it works continuously by taking this value and adding this 3 to get me 9, this 6 and adding this 9 to get me a 15, this 3 and adding this 15 to get me an 18, 1 and 18 to give me 19, oops, and 1 and 19 to give me 20. Okay, and of course this 20 should be the same as this 20, because by the time you get to the end of the interval, where you have all your data values, you're going to have the values that are that value or less is going to be everything. Okay, so that's again a little review of frequency, relative frequency, cumulative frequency. Fairly repetitive, but you should be pretty good at it by now. And hopefully that countifs function went pretty well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a distribution. There's actually 2 ways for you to do this. One way to do it is very mindless. Okay, the mindless way creates a distribution table that's got 5 categories and it doesn't think about it. It creates them at arbitrary values and it doesn't use any of our groupings that we have here. Okay, so you don't have to do any of this in order to get a distribution. So let me show you how to do that. The first thing you got to do, okay, is you go to your data set and you highlight your data set. And you just scroll down, scroll to 169, the bottom one. Okay, and then you go to insert. When you go to insert, you actually go, rather than to bar graphs, you go to this guy right here, which is a histogram. Okay? And you click on that, and you want it to do a histogram. You can also do box and whisker plot if you want to. Okay, but we're going to do a histogram. Okay? And then when you do that, it creates an arbitrary number, divides it into 4 categories, and it gives you an overall distribution. Okay, and it's my understanding that you can actually change these, but I've never been able to figure out how to change the actual number of bars. But my guess is it's not a difficult process. Again, you can go to a quick chart layout, and then you can have, you know, labels and stuff wherever you want. You can also remember you can add chart elements, so you could do an axis title, and you could do a vertical axis title, and then you could do a horizontal axis title. So go to axis titles, primary horizontal as well, and then go ahead and do it. And these, of course, are the beginnings and the ends of the intervals. Now, the intervals aren't the same as what we did. It goes from 146.5 to 162.5, 162.5 to 178.5. So in actual fact, this number right here is 146.5. This number right here is 162.5, which goes along with that one. This number here is 178.5 right here on the axis if you were to put a tick mark. this one 178.5, this one 194.5, this one 190.4.5, and this 210.5. These intervals are all the same size, and they have to be. And this is a distribution, okay? Notice there's no spaces between the bars in here, no spaces whatsoever, and so it's for continuous probability distributions. Now, if we want to customize it and make it different than the one that's here, instead of doing that mindless way to do it, we're going to do it with our grouped data, the data that we did all this work for. We'll do a frequency one because it's the easiest one to do. So what you do is you highlight these groups. Now, it's important to do, rather than do a dash, to put the word TO, because then of course it knows it as being not a number but a label. So again, you highlight your X, okay? You hold down your command or your control key and you highlight your frequency. Then you go up to insert, you make yourself a nice bar graph, but the key is when you make your bar graph, you can't have the bars be separate like they are here. This is for discrete data and this is for categorical data. Spaces between the numbers, spaces between the bars. What we need to do is we need to go to the quick layout. When we go to the quick layout, you're only going to see one of these where the bars are all scooched together, what we call a histogram. So I click on that and you'll notice the bars are all squished together. They're also pretty ugly looking because we don't even have any distinguishable bars, but I'll get to that in a second, okay? So it's pretty nice the way that this is all spaced out for us, and all the bars are together, so it's good for continuous data. What I do want to do is, and this is a way you can customize things, so we can actually see where the bars are and where the groupings are. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that and then right click. You can even see where the bars are here, but you go to Format Data Series and you go to this little paint can, okay? And you can do the fill or you can do the border. I want to do the border, okay? And I want to make the border rather than clear or transparent, I want to make it, I don't know, black or pink or whatever. You can make it whatever you want to make it. But now, of course, you can see distinguishable values and lines between each of the bars. And again, this is 139 to 149.5, which means that this right here is 139.5, 149.5, 159.5, 169.5, 179.5, 189.5, 199.5, and 209.5. Okay? And so it's an actual continuous scale like it would be a scale on a normal line, point and line graph that you would be drawing in a science class or any other class for that matter. Okay? So there's the end of our particular graph. Of course, for our label, we would want to make it a frequency distribution of the heights of students in Mr. H's data class fall 2012. And I probably made some typos in there, but you know what I mean. You can fix that from there. For the axis title, vertical axis, again, you're going to want to make it frequency. And then the bottom axis, you're going to want to make it, you're going to want to make it height. And you want to put units in here for sure when it's necessary. And that's in centimeters. Okay, we're metric babies. All right, so then there we have our last graph. It's not all of the graphs, but it's our last graph. I'll put that over here and then I'll space it out nicely for you guys to look at it again. And those are all our stats that we're going to do until we start crunching some numbers for measures of central tendency and for measures of spread. So that's that, and we'll be back in a bit.